The night she whispered it. The wind carried her words straight into his chest, like a held breath that finally broke. I have nowhere to go. Let me stay in your barn. He almost said no without looking. He'd learned that saying yes after dark only invited trouble. But then the lantern lifted, and the light caught her face. He froze, not because she was beautiful, not because she was soaked to the bone and shaking, but because just above her left eyebrow was a thin, pale scar he had traced 100 times with his thumb in a different life. The gate creaked behind him, the horses snorted, and the past came rushing back so hard it stole the air from his lungs. He had come to the ranch to forget. Miles of fence, the rhythm of chores, the clean ache in his shoulders. These were things that did not ask questions. When his wife disappeared 2 winters ago, the sheriff called it a mystery, the town called it fate, and he called it a wound that never learned to close. Now under the lantern's weak circle, a stranger stood in his rain-slick yard, wearing the proof of his grief on her skin. He lowered the light slowly, afraid the moment would shatter if he moved too fast. She hugged her coat tighter, eyes darting to the dark barn as if it were a promise she didn't dare believe. I won't be trouble, she said. Just the night. I'll sleep in the hay. Her voice was rough from cold, but it was the way she said hay, soft, almost smiling, that made his hands start to shake. He told himself scars are common. He told himself grief invents faces. He told himself to breathe. He stepped aside and nodded toward the barn, every step heavy with the fear of being wrong and the terror of being right. Inside, the barn smelled of dust and animals and the comfort of work done daily. He gave her a blanket, a thermos of coffee, and stood awkwardly, a man who had learned how to be alone and forgot how to leave. When she thanked him, her eyes lingered on his wedding band as if it meant something to her, and she looked away too quickly. He left her there, but sleep did not come. All night he lay awake listening for sounds that might explain this. Footsteps, crying, the scrape of memory returning. None came. Morning light was less forgiving. He found her awake, sweeping a corner of the barn as if she had always belonged there. I didn't want to be a burden, she said. And the words were exactly the ones his wife used the day she first moved into his life, carrying a cardboard box and a brave smile. He asked her name. She hesitated, a flicker of panic crossing her face, and said, I don't know. The truth landed between them, fragile and heavy. She explained in pieces, waking near the river weeks ago. No phone, no papers, a headache that never quite left. Memories like torn photographs. The scar, she said, was from a fire or maybe a fall, she wasn't sure. The rancher listened, his heart banging like a loose door, because he remembered the fire too. The old cabin by the creek, the flames, the scream, the empty ash where a future had been. Days passed because he let them. He told the sheriff he had hired help. He told himself it was temporary. She worked with a quiet gratitude that hurt to watch. And sometimes when she laughed, it was with a sound he hadn't heard since the world broke. Other times she stared at the horizon, hand pressed to her temple, as if chasing something just out of reach. He found the courage to ask about the scar one afternoon. And when he brushed it with his finger, she flinched, not from pain but recognition. Tears welled without warning. I know this, she whispered. I don't know how, but I know you. He turned away so she wouldn't see him. Unravel. The truth refused to be ignored. He dug out the old box from the closet, the one he had buried under tools and time. He spread the photographs on the kitchen table and asked her to look. She reached for one and dropped it like it burned. Her breath came in short bursts. That's me, she said, then shook her head. That can't be me. He told her about the night she vanished, about the search, about the ashes. He watched her crumble and rebuild in the same moment, watched memory struggle to surface like a swimmer breaking ice. When it came all at once. The argument, the storm, the drive, the fire started by a fallen line, the stranger who pulled her free, and the weeks that vanished in the fog of injury. She sobbed into his shirt like she had come home, and he held her like a man who had learned hope again the hard way. If the first chapter of their reunion was disbelief, the second was courage, and it began with a choice that could not be undone. He stood at the edge of town with her hand in his, the courthouse steps rising like a dare, and the hook caught deep because this time the ending depended on them, walking forward together. She could leave, no. One would blame her for chasing the life she couldn't remember, but she squeezed his fingers and said, I want to stay where I was found. The town whispered. The sheriff apologized. The paper printed a small story about a woman who came back from the dead. Healing did not arrive neatly. Nightmares returned like storms. Trust had to be built again, plank by plank. But mornings came with coffee and chores, and the barn that had sheltered a stranger became the place where a family was rebuilt. They fixed the old cabin by the creek and planted trees where the fire had stripped the land bare. On the day they moved back in, she paused at the doorway, breathing in the scent of new wood and old love. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said softly. He smiled, a real one, the kind that doesn't hurt. "You were never a guest," he answered. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the lesson they had earned. Sometimes the place you offer as shelter becomes the place that saves you, and sometimes the courage to say yes is the beginning of coming home.